I'm on a mission to reach my first 1,000 subscribers, and I need your support. If you love movies, reviews, and great stories, hit that subscribe button and join me on this journey. Thank you.
Hidden under their camouflage, two sharpshooters covered their teammates as the elite 10-man squad moved through the courtyard. Their objective was clear: capture the ruthless arms dealer, the man in the white suit. Everything was going according to plan, until it wasn't. The target, in a desperate act, activated a deadly weapon, instantly killing several members of the strike team. Some died on the spot, blood seeping from 7 holes in their bodies, victims of an unknown attack. In a matter of seconds, the squad was reduced to half its original size. To make matters worse, the arms dealer's militia had arrived at the gate, with only 6 members left. Could they turn the tide and escape death's grip? The story began 2 days earlier in a barren desert. Sniper Brandon Beckett met Lieutenant Colonel Bo Beckett after receiving an urgent summons. He had been flown in on a special transport, unaware of the mission details, or even what country he was in. Bo didn't offer much explanation, simply instructing Brandon to follow. As they walked, 2 more people approached, a woman named Tia and a man named Sai. Introductions were brief, but Brandon soon learned they were in Costa Verde. The group boarded a vehicle and headed to their base. Along the way, Sai explained that his uncle, Roman, had manipulated the people's suffering and anger to seize power as the country's prime minister. But instead of leading, he sold the nation to the highest bidder, including the infamous arms dealer, Kovac. Under their agreement, Kovac would supply weapons to the prime minister's private army in exchange for the freedom to manufacture and distribute arms without restrictions. That was why Sai had joined Phoenix, a resistance group determined to bring Kovac to justice. Phoenix had located Kovac's headquarters and positioned a satellite to monitor it. Usually, Kovac visited once every quarter to supply new weaponry to the prime minister. But 2 nights ago, Sai detected a thermal signature, a helicopter landing in the courtyard. Something was happening ahead of schedule, and they needed to strike within 48 hours. The reconnaissance was complete, and now it was time for Brandon to take his position and pull the trigger. At Phoenix's base in Costa Verde, Brandon reunited with an old friend, Agent Zero. Bo gave them space to catch up, saying they'd reconvene inside later. Zero confided that he had been hunting Kovac for years but had never been able to take him down. From Africa to the United States, Kovac had left a trail of destruction. At one point, an international task force had been established to track him, but when Kovac fled to the US, bureaucratic red tape delayed Zero's ability to act. By the time he received clearance, Kovac had vanished. A month ago, Sai tracked down Kovac's personal weapons designer, Mark. In Costa Verde, Zero called Sai a genius. He had followed the money trail through the dark web, discovering that the Prime Minister's shell company was funneling payments to Kovac. That intel led them to Mark's location, which in turn led to Bo's involvement. With his influence in the National Security Bureau, Bo had the authority to handpick missions. "This is our team," Bo announced, codenamed Inferno Marauders. "Live or die, we will see this through." The team consisted of elite operatives from around the world, 10 in total, including Black, Long, Musashi, and the newly introduced Sai and Tia. The rest would meet later. Many had already heard of Brandon's reputation as a top-tier sniper. As they spoke, Bo introduced another young man, Snipes, their designated marksman. While he had never missed a shot in training, his actual combat experience was minimal. His kill count? 0. With little time to waste, they began training immediately, rehearsing coordinated strikes in a simulated battlefield. The saying held true: sweat more in training, bleed less in battle. Bo laid out the plan. The assault would commence at dawn when the guards were at their weakest. The compound had an underground escape tunnel. They would enter from the exit point and infiltrate through a concealed cellar hatch. However, there was an added risk. Mark, Kovac's weapons scientist, was a madman. No one knew what kind of horrors he had created. Gas masks and protective gear were mandatory in case of anthrax or nerve agents. Once inside, they would seize any weapons or intelligence before extracting via the same tunnel to a private dock. A fishing boat would be waiting to ferry them away. Capturing Kovac and Mark alive would be preferable, but if necessary, they were to be eliminated on sight. Bo split the team into 5 pairs, each with a specific assignment. This mission was highly dangerous. Kovac was protected by Prime Minister Dae's formidable militia, who specialized in eliminating threats. If word of the attack leaked, reinforcements would arrive in force. Later, Brandon took Snipes aside for a personal talk. "The first kill is the hardest," he told him. "You'll question whether the guy deserves to die. But remember, if you don't pull the trigger, he will, and it won't just be you, it could be your teammates." That night, the team shared a meal together. Over dinner, Bo enthusiastically recounted one of Black's legendary stories, how, as a rookie patrol officer, she once confronted an arsonist armed with a knife at a gas station. She had no backup. She fought him off, took 11 stab wounds, and still managed to subdue him. Bo had seen the news report and tracked her down. recruiting her immediately. After dinner, Zero noticed Black sketching something. When he asked, she admitted she was drawing for her daughter. When was the last time you saw her? He asked. She hesitated. Too long ago. Meanwhile, Sai was at his computer, scanning intelligence. Brandon paused before speaking. Your uncle will see this as treason. He warned, if you keep going, he'll come after you. Sai didn't even look up. Then I guess I'll have to move faster. But Sai was unwavering. I want to follow in my father's footsteps, fight for my country and my people. At the pre-battle briefing, Bo made his stance clear. We must stop Kovac from selling another weapon or taking another innocent life, even if it costs us our own. Later, Brandon took Snipes outside. He wanted to see if the rookie had the nerve to pull the trigger for the first time. Snipes told Brandon that he came from a long line of freedom fighters. His older brother had been part of the movement but was killed in 1986. His father had joined the South African military and eventually fell in battle as well. There is no more honorable death than dying for your country, he said. I hope to go the same way. Once night fully set in, the two set up their sniper positions. Brandon pointed to a target, a Kovac guard, and told Snipes to send him to meet his maker. When your superior orders you to take the shot, you take it, no questions asked. It was a test, not a real mission. Brandon had tricked him, putting him under pressure to see if he could handle it. Snipes fired his first shot and passed. The experience left him even more in awe of Brandon. But he also wondered, why wasn't Brandon leading the mission himself? Brandon explained, there's a difference between taking orders and giving them. Taking orders means gambling with your own life. Giving them means putting others' lives on the line. And if things spiral out of control, that blood is on you. Snipes only half understood, but Brandon continued, if people trust you enough to risk their lives, that's their choice, it's not yours to make. They returned to the base to gear up. Everyone loaded up with full combat equipment. Brandon steadied his breathing. Only by staying calm could a sniper land the perfect shot. Once ready, they moved out. By dawn, they reached their entry point and slipped into the underground tunnel unnoticed. Brandon and Snipes, dressed in full camouflage, took position on a hillside, their rifles trained on the compound. Two guards stood on the rooftop. Snipes suggested taking out the one nearest the alarm first. Meanwhile, the team inside the tunnel neutralized a guard. They were minutes from reaching the junction box when Sai hacked into the surveillance system. The security feeds revealed multiple vehicles in the compound, along with several high-value targets in the office. As the team emerged from the tunnel, Bo gave the snipers their order, create a distraction and clear the way. With his years of experience, Brandon deliberately shot one enemy in the leg, drawing the others out into the open, where they were swiftly taken down. The assault team moved into the courtyard. Finding no hostiles in the garage, they sabotaged the vehicles. Elsewhere, another squad engaged in close combat. Black quickly took down two hostiles before slipping into the armory, where they fortified their position. Bo led his team through the kitchen, eliminating an enemy, but another slipped away. They pursued him, only to find themselves face to face with Kovac. The arms dealer wielded a flamethrower, unleashing a wall of fire while triggering the compound's alarm and calling the Prime Minister for backup. As Kovac attempted to escape through a back exit, he ran straight into Zero and his team. A firefight erupted. Bo soon arrived, closing in from another angle. Meanwhile, Brandon spotted an enemy sniper and his spotter. He quickly relayed wind speed and position to Snipes. At the signal, both fired. 2 headshots. 2 kills. Kovac, still on the line with the Prime Minister, realized reinforcements were closing in. Desperate, he yanked a tarp off a mysterious device and activated it. The scientist in the room panicked, rushing to adjust the controls. If he failed, they were all in danger. Then, chaos. A blast of sonic energy rippled through the compound. Dust filled the air. Everyone was thrown to the ground. The shockwave even knocked out the 2 in the armory. The snipers, noticing their comms had gone dark, decided to move in. As Kovac groggily got to his feet, he found a gun pressed to his temple. Zero stood over him. The rest of the team regrouped in the lab. Brandon, still disoriented, asked, "What the hell just happened?" Kovac triggered a sonic weapon. Zero explained, "It knocked us back, but I think we're still in one piece." Kovac smirked, 100 armed militia will be here soon. You're all dead. But Bo had anticipated this. Even if the Prime Minister sends reinforcements, it'll take them an hour to arrive. By then, we'll be long gone, with everything we came for. Bo assigned tasks. First, they needed to extract the lab's hard drives. Next, they had to secure any intel on Kovac's weapons sales. But suddenly, Bo's nose started bleeding. Then the others. Kovac let out a laugh, before suddenly collapsing, along with his scientist. Within moments, the affected team members stopped breathing. Zero immediately pieced it together. The sonic weapon had done more than disorient them, it had lethal side effects. But there was no time to grieve. The enemy reinforcements were en route. The remaining members argued. Black wanted to carry their fallen comrades out, but Zero pointed out the impossibility of hauling the bodies through the tunnel. With all their vehicles disabled, they had no transport. Sai turned to Brandon. What do we do? Brandon, the most composed of them all, took command. They would carry their fallen to the tunnel entrance. Meanwhile, he would examine the weapon. Sai was stunned to see the control system still active. The device used microwave frequencies to disrupt brain function. Brandon recalled something. He had heard of a similar weapon before. Kovac had sold one to North Korea. When they tested it, their own soldiers had suffered mysterious brain failures. Now, it was happening here. Sai continued, his voice tense. Kovac has advanced this weapon further and sold it to the Russians. It caused dizziness, nausea, and unconsciousness in over 130 protesters. But this machine, this is the latest version. Kovac has made it even deadlier, and he's working on a silent handheld model. They had to destroy it. Brandon suggested retrieving the weapon's data first, ensuring the world knew how to counter it. But the servers were too massive to move. They needed another way. That's when Brandon remembered the satellite overhead. They could upload the data and transmit it to global intelligence agencies before wiping the system clean. But time was running out. Within minutes, the militia would arrive. 6 against 100. We could save countless lives. Brandon said, to me, that makes this fight worth it. He didn't force anyone to stay. But if they did, he'd show them how 6 could fight like 60. Black hesitated, then nodded. This was a Black Ops mission, no reinforcements. Brandon ordered Sai to contact Phoenix. Their last hope. If Phoenix could arrive before the militia, they had a chance. Meanwhile, they gathered every round of ammunition they could find, but it wasn't much. They would have to use everything at their disposal. Sai checked the surveillance feed. They'll be here in 30 minutes. Brandon quickly positioned the team, creating overlapping kill zones, but sheer numbers wouldn't be enough. They needed to lure the militia deeper inside, eliminating them in waves. Above all, they had to protect the lab where Sai was uploading the data. Once complete, they would cut the compound's power and escape through the tunnel. Before the battle, Brandon handed Sai a phone. The first number triggers explosives in the hallway. If they breach, use it. The second number, he hesitated, blows the lab. Call it when we're in the tunnel. Then they waited. Minutes later, Sai's voice crackled over the radio. Enemy convoy incoming. 80, maybe 90 men. From her vantage point, Black spotted the first vehicles. Brandon ordered everyone to brace. Break and Long Hai tossed smoke grenades, obscuring enemy sightlines. As the haze thickened, Brandon charged in, gun blazing. The moment the smoke cleared, he dove for cover as the others opened fire, cutting down scores of militia. But in the grand scheme, it was a drop in the ocean. Long Hai, taking cover in the garage, sniped an enemy, but it gave away her position. Worse, she was out of ammo. Zero covered her retreat, but a few pursuers pressed on. Strangely, they had no firearms, only melee weapons. Long Hai had no choice but to fight them hand-to-hand in a flooded tank. She drew twin axes and cut through them with precision. They attacked as a group but were no match. Within moments, they were down. One finally remembered his gun, but it was too late. A well-aimed axe split his skull, faster than drawing a trigger. Elsewhere, the militia's heavy weapons arrived. Brandon saw the situation turning dire and sprinted back to his sniper perch. The enemy spotted him, targeting the most dangerous shooter first. Zero and Black provided cover. But soon, Black was pinned down herself. Brandon feigned retreat, leading the enemy deeper inside. As a gunner raised his weapon, Brandon struck first, but another wave of enemies stormed in. He ordered the team to fall back to the secondary kill zone, where they would wipe out another wave. Without bullets, Black had to rely on her blade. She turned, and locked eyes with a female militia fighter. No guns. A brutal hand-to-hand fight ensued. At first, Black was losing, almost impaled. But with a last-second move, she shifted, taking a cut to her ear instead. Enraged, she lunged. A few swift slashes, and her opponent was down. Snipes arrived, backing her up. They pressed forward. Meanwhile, Brandon fought his way back to Zero. Zero detonated a gas line, cutting off their pursuers. Split up, he ordered. Back in the lab, Sai's upload reached 91%. A militia woman stormed into the kitchen. Zero didn't hesitate. One swift move, and she crumpled to the floor. Neck snapped. The mission wasn't over yet, but they were running out of time. Outside, more enemies lurked, but oddly, they were unarmed. Zero had no choice but to fight hand-to-hand, using anything within reach as a weapon. He threw himself into the brawl, battling militia fighters from the kitchen to the narrow hallway. He punched one enemy through a doorway, only for another to take his place. The onslaught seemed endless. Thinking fast, Zero broke off a table leg and swung it like a club, battering his next opponent, but an enemy blindsided him from behind. Instinctively, Zero grabbed a jagged piece of wood from the floor and spun, driving it into his attacker. As the man dropped, Zero picked up his gun and finished the job. Realizing he needed an edge, Zero stripped a grenade from a fallen enemy, pulled the pin, and hurled it toward a cluster of militia fighters. The explosion rocked the compound. Meanwhile, Brandon was in his own brawl. The elite sniper decided to test his hand-to-hand skills for once. After wrestling a pistol away from an enemy and dispatching 2 others, he barely had time to react before a rifle butt struck him in the head. Staggering, he managed to lift his gun. But the fight turned into a brutal grapple. Taking advantage of the chaos, Brandon looped his rifle strap around the man's neck, tightening until the struggle ceased. Shaking off the pain, he checked on Sai. How much longer? 98% uploaded. Sai called back. But I hear footsteps approaching. Hit the first number, Brandon ordered. Sai complied, triggering the hallway explosives just as Brandon was about to reach the lab. Gunfire erupted, pinning him down. Zero immediately moved in to assist. A well-placed grenade cleared the way. At the same moment, Sai gave the good news. The upload was complete. He initiated the power cut. The countdown began, 10 seconds before the compound was plunged into darkness. But things took a turn. Long Hai's night vision failed. Brandon, hearing this, sprinted to assist. Long Hai threw a flare into the armory, but the militia had already flooded in. Trapped, she was gunned down instantly. Brandon, wearing night vision, took out the remaining enemies, but Long Hai was gone. Gritting his teeth, he relayed the loss. Mission complete. Fall back to the tunnel. Brandon told Sai not to cross the courtyard, but there was no response. Worried, Brandon moved to retrieve him, only to be shot in the abdomen. He staggered, pressing a hand to the wound, leaning against the wall before collapsing. Just as the darkness closed in, Zero arrived in time to drag him to safety. But Sai wasn't as lucky. He had been caught in a hail of bullets. The team eliminated the remaining enemies and rushed to him. Barely alive, Sai handed his phone to Brandon. The Phoenix Uprising is about to begin. He whispered, the legacy of my family will be remembered because of you. Thank you, for showing me the way. Under the gaze of his teammates, Sai took his last breath. Brandon silently dialed the second number. The lab exploded in a fiery blast. There was no time to linger. Only a handful of militia remained. Into the tunnel, now, Brandon ordered. He stayed behind to cover their retreat. But Zero refused to leave. I'm staying. They stood together, ready for one last stand. Then, the sound of engines roared in the distance. Phoenix reinforcements had arrived. They were rescued. As the resistance fighters took control, Brandon and Zero briefed their leader, asking him to retrieve the fallen soldiers. The survivors left through the main gate. But a miracle happened. Phoenix fighters found Sai, still alive. His pulse weak. Elsewhere, the 4 remaining members of the squad made it to the docks. Black had unfinished business and stayed behind. Taking a later boat, Snipes chose to stay and fight. Tell me what you see. He told Brandon, I see a man I'd fight alongside anytime. Anywhere. In the end, only Brandon and Zero boarded the boat, leaving Costa Verde behind. The story concluded here. This film served as a side story to the Sniper franchise, marking the 11th entry in the series. The first film debuted in 1993, with this installment's protagonist being the son of the original trilogy's lead. Remarkably, the franchise continued thriving to this day. However, one point of contention among fans was the inclusion of so many hand-to-hand fight scenes in a sniper film, where both the protagonist and enemies barely used guns. Today's story comes to an end, but the journey of exploring great movies continues. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any exciting upcoming videos. Also, leave a comment sharing your thoughts on the movie. Your support is the biggest motivation for me to create even more quality content. See you in the next video.